had an interesting experience yesterday. I'm an adjunct professor at Prince George's Community College, and I get to the class, and there's a young lady there who's deaf. She can't hear. So, what the good and the bad is that she was actually in my class about a month earlier in a different course. But in that case, she had 3 translators. Not one, but 3 translators. And they would take turns interpreting for her. So I would pretty much just do what I would normally do. But on this particular day, there was no translators. I'm looking out the door saying, waiting on this translator to come in the door. But it didn't. It never happened. And so I look at her, and she looked at me, and we recognized each other. So the first thing I said to myself, well, I took some, I kind of have been a self-taught sign language person, but more as a hobby, more than any kind of formal learning or to do it for any type of profession. So I did one, I said, okay, time to draw on my experience. So I did one of these numbers. I said, I did that. And immediately she said, oh yeah, I remember you. And I said, oh my goodness, she actually understood what I was saying. I said, wow. So I'm starting to feel like, well, maybe this might work. But I'm still trying to wonder where these translators are, hoping they would come into the door in a minute. I mean, it's one thing to be sitting there signing to yourself and to you in the mirror and playing around, but now all of a sudden you have somebody sitting out there in the class depending on you. It's like, you know, when you're playing basketball out in the dirt, and all of a sudden now you're on the field with Steph Curry. So of course, to say I was a little intimidated would be an understatement. So I did, the first thing I said, I will teach if you will learn. And she said, and she repeated it back to me. She said, you will teach me if I will learn. And I said, yes, I will try. So I'm starting to build a little confidence now. And so as the class wore on, I'm getting more confident. I'm still very, very intimidated by the awesomeness of it, because this person is actually sitting here listening to me. Now the good thing is I had a big old PowerPoint behind me, so she could actually see, and she could read lips. So it wasn't as bad as if I was just trying to speak only. So the PowerPoint was making up for any lack or shortages of words that I was able to articulate. But she was a very good lip reader, so I made sure that I was facing her at most times. And then on occasion, I would ask a question, and the people in the audience would answer. And of course, I'm looking down at her, and she's looking at me like, hey, what did that person just say? And it just so happened that on one of the topics we were talking about demographics. We were talking about, I'm always talking about the audience. It's not as important for you as it is for the people that you're trying to reach. In other words, the audience is more about them. And then I'm saying this, I'm looking down at her, and it's almost like an irony. It's like I'm telling the audience, I'm telling my class, it's not about you. It's about the audience you're trying to reach. And here in front of me is an audience of a person who can't hear. And so this time I said to myself, it's time for me to drop the fear. It's time for me to reach within my soul and try to find a way to communicate with one of my students. So the person behind me, we were talking about demographics. And I said, what is one of the demographics? And the lady behind me, she said, age. And so, of course, the young lady sitting in front of me, she couldn't hear it because it was behind her. She couldn't read her lips. So she looked at me. I go, oh, here I go. I'm on the spot. So I took my hand, I said, A-G-E. And she said, age. So she repeated it back to me. This person is actually understanding what I'm saying. I'm saying to myself, I'm not a signer. And then she said, the lady behind her said another demographic. She said, income. I said, I-N-C-O-M-E. She said, income. So this lady in front of me repeated it back to me. So this goes to a bigger point, a bigger issue. In life, we're going to be faced with situations where we don't feel like we're up to the task. We're going to feel like we're going to be embarrassed. We feel like we're going to be marginalized. We feel like we're going to be judged. But if we would just take the emphasis off of ourselves and focus on the people that need the assistance, usually you're not going to be prosecuted or judged or treated harshly because you made a mistake trying to help somebody. And so that's what I took away from it. I don't plan to change my career and become a professional sign. I really don't have that kind of skill. But what it did teach me is that I found an opportunity to reduce one more barrier that's separating us and an opportunity to help somebody. Thank you, and I'm out.